Ducks and Beavs getting together on the final day of the regular season as they have done for years and years and decades and basically forever. This is it. If you love college football traditions, find out more about this one. It means a lot on the playing field for a Pac-12 championship, but it always means a lot to the state of Oregon. We got Ryan Winter here from Sports Chat 503 to help us break down Oregon State. Ryan, how's it going?
Great, Mark. How are you?
I am doing just fine, and I know you appreciate the traditions and the history as much as anybody. Oh, yeah. And this one is rich, and it is fervent. And how would you categorize this series, maybe versus some of the other rivalries out there? What makes this one a bit unique?
Well, it's like you said, it should be the most important game to the state of Oregon, and the state of Oregon's pretty remote. It's pretty rural. It's out here on the edge of the West Coast. It's the Wild West out here. And, Portland is a pretty interesting city comparatively to all the other cities on the West Coast. And, we're split down the middle everywhere you go. These schools only separate each other by about 40 miles. And, one is kind of represented in one side of society. One is kind of represented in the other side of society when it comes to Oregon State being an ag school and really kind of structured there, where Oregon's more of a business law school, and similar kind of setup to Washington and Washington State. And so there's kind of a cultural divide, a socioeconomic maybe divide even of sorts, but also in geography. So, you have kind of a connection to all sorts of different levels of society that you could break down the line. But it's also very interconnected. And over time, you've had a lot of blending of families where you have a lot of houses that are divided, and you have a lot of kind of interwoven connection between all these universities. So it's really fun to, for the most part, root for the other team throughout the year. Now, the Beavs, for the most part, really do not like us, and partially because of the success. But, I try to root for the Beavs wherever they're at, because I always want this game to be the biggest game all year. This is my favorite game of the entire year of any sporting event all year. So this is the one to me that I look at as being the most important game on the schedule. Whether or not the Beavs are good, it still is a very important game.
That last statement I can completely relate to. And I've made that statement throughout this week, it being rivalry week, that despite records, rivalries supersede that. And if you are truly a college football fan, and I'm not going to make a judgment on people's interests or what level of fan they are in any such way, but I just believe that most really in touch college football fans, there's just something that goes beyond winning a championship, that goes beyond the rankings, that goes beyond all that. And it's just simply because we are this school and this team, that's the one that matters more than anyone else, regardless of what else is going on. And you know what? I'm going to do a little set repair here just in the moment, because we just recorded some Miami. So I'm sure that Oregon fans especially don't appreciate the Miami helmet. And we've got the two right there that we can set up against each other. And actually, I used those just a couple days ago because I did a breakdown of the 6 common opponents that faced both Oregon and Oregon State, and just to try to get a feel for what the numbers say between the two. And as you might expect, Ryan, it basically states that Oregon State has taken care of the football. They've been really good at running the football. They've been really good at stopping the run, but Oregon's been so much more explosive on offense, courtesy one Bo Nix and a lot of playmakers.
Absolutely. Oregon State's done a really good job this year. We kind of slotted them before the year started at somewhere around 7 to 8, maybe 9 wins. And here they are. They're at 8 wins going into this game, and they can go to a bowl game. If they lose this game, still get that 9th win, or possibly pick up the 9th win, win a bowl game, get to 10 wins. And if you were to tell me that the Beavs could have had a possibility to win 10 wins beginning of the year, that'd be saying something. So really proud of Jonathan Smith and that team over there. They do a really good job. They found their running back. It took a little while, but, now they have the freshman running back who's just absolutely awesome. And they do a really good job of kind of balancing. They've always done a really good job of balancing the run and pass. And this year they did a really good job of kind of just leaning on whenever they need to lean on a certain position group. Early on they had the quarterback go down, and so they really couldn't throw the ball very well. And part of their offense was the QB play. Jonathan Smith being a quarterback one of the better quarterback coaches out here on the West Coast, I would probably say, as a head coach. And he just got into a situation where there was a time when probably Jack Coletto, the linebacker slash H-back, was probably the best quarterback on the roster. You know, he was a guy that played quarterback all the way through high school and tried to give it a shot in college and didn't really work out. But, you know, he still throws a really nice ball. And it was a situation where they just really limited offensively because of their quarterback play. It didn't really deter them, though, in their season because they just started to roll. And, you know, their defense starts taking care of business and they start doing enough to win. And I really liked, you know, the idea that they're, it's not quite an insult, but the idea that the biggest game of the year this year for them was a loss. You know, even all their wins comparatively, it's the loss to USC that is kind of the biggest game for them. It's not a win. It's not a moral victory, but you kept USC down to 17 points. You had that game. You probably should have won that game. And if you look at USC and the rest of their schedule, you know, they've been blowing teams out and putting a lot of numbers on teams. And so that's saying something. Well, of course, then the week later, you get blown out by Utah if you're the Beavs. But then you go on this nice little run where, you know, you're winning some games. You lose the game to Washington. But outside of that, you've kept a lot of teams down. And, you know, I look at the Washington State game. You talked about common opponents. You know, the Washington State game, they held them down to 10 points. Oregon, you know, they scored 40 points against Oregon. So it's just it's weird to see it at the end of the year because you have so much data to go on. But, you know, this is always the rivalry game. You throw all the records out, right? And you just line it up and see who can play the best on that day. And I do like Oregon's chances. I think Oregon does run the ball. And if Bo Nix is getting healthier, which he is, he said yesterday he feels a lot better than he did last week at this time. I think you'll be able to kind of still keep teams honest. Last week, Utah just pinned their ears back because they knew Bo couldn't do anything. And they really didn't do much on the ground. They still got some first downs and they still got some plays here and there. But, you know, this Oregon State defense is really good and they're really good on the back end. So I don't expect Oregon to be able to go over the top on them that much. It's just going to be a ground and pound game. And I do think for Oregon State offensively, they're lining up and they're going to go right into Oregon's hands defensively. Oregon wants to stop the run. Oregon proved against Washington they're not good against the pass. Washington, you know, has just picked them apart, over 400 yards on them over the top. And this is a situation where the Beavs, you know, without having a great of a quarterback right now, they're going to run the ball. Well, that's what Oregon wants them to do. So I tend to think that at the end of the day, it might be a kicking game. And then Oregon probably has the better kicking game. So I like their chances, but I do think it's going to be close.
Yeah, Ryan, going back to last weekend, that was really a spotlight Saturday for the Pac-12. You had USC, UCLA getting together and doing what they do, which was light up the scoreboard. Then you had a much different game, but just as entertaining from a defensive standpoint, and just two tremendous games to spotlight this conference and for the top five teams. And of course, we got a good look at the way Bo Nix gutted out through injury, through pain, gutted out a win, but it was really a gutsy win by the entire Oregon team.
Yeah, it was a defensive win. And, you know, you said, you know, the defense showed up in this game and really the offense has showed up in that game in Los Angeles. You know, the defense really has not won many games for the Ducks in their time. I mean, I went back for the last 20 years and I thought, you know, there's not been many games where Oregon scored 20 points or less and won. And I can only think of one off the top of my head, which was the Red Box Bowl. You know, and that was like a 7-8 win or 7-6 win or something like that. Yeah. And then they had one win against Cal. So in the last 20 years, they're 30-3 in games where they score 20 points or less. So that there is a magic number, right? So you got to get to over 20 if you're the Ducks to be successful. But this was a game that just we weren't really expecting. We were expecting both offenses to show up. And obviously after that Washington game, you were expecting kind of the worst if you were an Oregon fan, thinking, oh man, they're going to pick us apart with, you know, they're a myriad of different players they have offensively, but they just kept leaning on the run. They outgained the Ducks on the ground by over 100 yards and or just about 100 yards. And so again, the Ducks have their hands full. And I think Oregon State models themselves after Utah a little bit. They do things a little different. Obviously, everybody does things different, but you know, in the grand scheme of things, they want to use their tight ends. They want to run the ball. They want to throw the ball when they can, but they set it up off the run. And then defensively, they want to be very active and put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, doing it in a little different way than Utah did. Utah put a lot of pressure on the quarterback because they knew obviously Bo was not active, being able to could have run the ball. But also that's just kind of their style. And they're willing to put a lot of guys up in the box and leave those guys on islands on the outside, which Oregon took advantage of. Oregon was able to throw the ball over the top against Utah pretty handily. I mean, there was some really big plays, 50-yard bombs over the top that you don't really see all the time in the Pac-12.
Absolutely. We got Ryan Winter here from Sports Chat 503. Get on over there. Check out Ryan's work covering the Ducks, taking on the Beavs. And as a college football fan, this is what you look forward to, not just the rivalry game, but where your team is in a position to claim a conference championship slot. And you don't have to count on 4 other teams and 18 permutations to work out in your direction. It's flat out just win and you're in.
And you get to play, hopefully, the team that you wanted to play, which is USC the whole year. I think the whole country wanted to see that in the Pac-12 championship. So if the Ducks take care of business this Saturday, they'll be there. And I can't wait. I'll be there as well. And I think the fun thing about them changing the venue to Vegas is really that it gives people an opportunity to really want to get there, as opposed to Santa Clara. I mean, no offense to the good people of Santa Clara, but I think Vegas has a little bit maybe more to offer to the average person. And I do think that the Pac-12, if they can keep it together out here, maybe, we still don't really know exactly what's going to go on with UCLA. We obviously know USC's gone, but, this is a big deal, especially because Oregon plays USC next year. And in the last year of this commitment that USC has with us in the Pac-12. So it'd be pretty amazing to see Oregon get a victory possibly against USC in the Pac-12 championship game. And then go to the Rose Bowl. I think that'd be pretty amazing way to have the start for Dan Lanning in his career. I mean, I already think it's been a fantastic year so far, just the way that they worked this thing after that Georgia game. Again, I was there in Atlanta, and it was a terrible, terrible situation for the Ducks coming off of that thing. And the heads were hung low in the airport, boy, coming home. But since then, they really did rebound, and they got back to business. And Bo Nix really showed up this year and really upped his draft stock, in the NFL. I think a lot of people are now looking at him as being a possible candidate in the NFL. And I don't know if that was really the case when he left Auburn. So there's really good things about being a Duck fan right now. And obviously the offensive coordinator, Kenny Dillingham, is probably going to be looked at from being a head coach in a variety of different places, ASU probably being one of them. And that's going to happen to good teams. So it's just a really fun time right now. There's a lot to be thankful for. It's Thanksgiving weekend. We always look at these, rivalry games around the country. Ohio State, Michigan, probably the best one of them all. Iron Bowl, the Egg Bowl. The all the different ones that are out there. But we have something really special out here with the Apple Cup, Washington State, very unique rivalry, and then obviously the Oregon State rivalry. The used to be called Civil War, now unnamed bowl. But the idea behind it is just, it's a great way to have all the families come together. This game always used to be before Thanksgiving when we didn't have as many games on the schedule. Now it finds its way after Thanksgiving, and it almost feels like a holiday in and of itself. So it is a great moment to be a college football fan.
I'll be watching. Ducks and Beavs get together, and even when there's nothing on the line, this is one of my go-tos for rivalry week for sure. 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 local time on Saturday, Oregon State. Ryan, enjoy the game. I know that you're going to revel in the experience regardless of the outcome, but of course you want those Ducks to win.
Oh, absolutely. And for my son, he gets a field pass. My son is a photographer, and now he's going to have his second field pass of his career. Going to be on the field for this one. It's going to be a very special time for the whole fam. So can't wait, Mark. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It is. Can't thank you enough. And again, thank you. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Happy Thanksgiving. Can't thank you enough, though, Mark, for what you do for college football. I know I hear it from a lot of different people. Hey, I see you on Mark Rogers. Dude, you're the man. So can't thank you enough, man. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving.
Right on. See you soon, bud.